Hi, welcome back to EducateTube.com. My name is Sipsky, your host. Recently I sold my a6500 and a7r II for something else. In fact, I downsized all my cameras and have a little money to use for other gears. So let me talk about the a6500 that I sold off. So the a6500 I sold off and end up downgrading or downsizing to a6000. So I purchased a6000 and have enough money to purchase a7r version 1. So for the price of a6500, I was able to purchase two cameras, a6000 and a7r. What an amazing deal. Now you probably wonder, why would I do that? A6500 is an awesome camera. Well, it is an awesome camera, but for the work that I do, I mainly do 1080p type of videos, and when I shoot, I shoot 10 frames per second, 11 frames per second, which is the same as a6500. Well, the a6500 has in-body stabilization and touchscreen and 4K. A6000, well, it doesn't have in-body stabilization, but if I put in a monopod or tripod and you have sufficient amount of light, this is actually a very good camera. It may not have the best auto focus like the a6500 or the eye detection, but if you know how to frame your shot, you know how to tell your subject to hold still, then you should be fine. And even with nature type of photography, like say if you're shooting insect, if you just know how to compose your shot, this is more than adequate. In fact, you can check Jason Lanier's recent video on a6000. He made a video in November 2017, and his user or viewers requested that he do one, for those who can't afford, a7r III, do an a6000 video series, and it proved to me that his video anyway, that with a good model, good lighting, and a decent lens, I mean, it doesn't have to be very expensive. He used actually Sigma 30 f1.4 with a6000, and he was able to do a very good photography. So I thought to myself, well, yeah, why don't I do that? Focus more on spending less and get quality photos. So a6000 is more than adequate. In fact, with the a6500 being sold, I end up also be able to purchase a 7R version 1. Now, do you remember a7R camera? A lot of complain about it, that it has a shutter vibration, blah blah blah. It's very slow, blah blah blah. But do you know that it is actually a full frame? It does 36 megapixel. Okay, it's a full frame, and it's a 36 megapixel. Think about that for a minute. That means that it can take in more light than a APS-C camera, and it has more dial than the a6500. So, and I think it feels like it's a little bit lighter than the a6500, but I love it. It's an amazing camera. In fact, I would trade a7R for an a6500 and vice versa, but I end up getting two for the price of one. Just imagine that. So yes, for the a7R, as long as you have a tripod or a monopod, and a good lighting system, and know how to compose your shot, this is an awesome camera. I would say if you have the monopod and a tripod and a bit of lighting, you know how to compose your shot, it's probably the same, if not as good as a7R II. Now the a7R II, as you know, has a ABS, internal stabilization system in there. It does 4K. This does not. This thing does 1080p, 60 frames per second. But you got to remember this though. If your work is 4K, you would also have to upgrade your computer system, and you need more drive space, right? So you need more space to handle those type of file, which is very big if you're doing 4K and you're doing 42 megapixel. So as long as you have your computer system set up to handle it, then it's fine. Remember, if you have your old system and you decide to upgrade to the a7R II or a7R III, then your computer system has to be upgraded as well, or you will slow down your workflow. That is very important. A lot of people might forget about that. So this is why I said I love my 1080p YouTube videos. As long as I know how to color grade a little bit better, you know, teach myself a better skills on how to do that, how to compose my shot, develop a way to compose my settings and all that stuff. I think these two cameras is more than adequate to do a professional jobs. And if I decide to say get a paid job, these two cameras is more than adequate. Remember, it's only about 4 years ago, and you know, these two cameras, I can't remember the time, but it's you know, it seems like a long time, right? 4 years ago, this camera was like, you know, the pro version of a camera. This is a pro consumer. This would be considered almost a pro camera, the a7r camera. So, I mean, you know, what has changed in the last 4 years? Not much. I mean, the camera has improved, but it's improved because of a bit of technology like a 4K and in-body stabilization, but it does not improve the photographer's skills. They have to learn that, right? And the composition, for example, the subject and the background that you're trying to shoot, that doesn't change. It is in the eye of the photographer or the videographer that decide how to do that. So I have a rule, actually. The rule is 4-4-2. And basically, you should invest 20% of your money and time in your gears, okay? Don't be obsessed with gear. I have all latest, greatest technology, and I find that does not improve my skills, right? At all. It just improved me from procrastinating to do my skills. So remember the 20% rule. Okay, the other 40%, of course, is the skill of the photographer or videographer. Now, I'm just a learning video photographer and photographer, and I'm learning from, you know, the big name guys, people who are really good at what they're doing. And for me, it's about training myself how to use these camera to its max and to increase my skills. And I think these two cameras is more than adequate. That's number 40%. Okay, so the photographer or videographer skills, and the other 40% is the actually subject, object, or the composition, you can call it. It is what the photographer is looking at, right? Whether it's a sceneries, whether it's a, you know, female model or male model, an insect, whatever it is. That's the 40%, right? You have to have the right shot, right? And the photographer and the videographer has to see that scene different than everybody else, but such that it's so creative and such thought-provoking, and that the image will just stands right out. It will be like, just imagine Picasso or Da Vinci, which was recently sold for about $450 million. Just imagine that. If you were able to take that type of, instead of painting, but you take a picture or a video of something that is so unique, such, it will change the mind of people. Well, that's all you care about. That's 40% of your work, right? So 40% is the composition, the subject, the object. 40% is the photographer or the videographer skills, and the 20% is the gear. So you can see, do not spend too much effort or money and time on your gears. Go and shoot. And that's what I've been doing. I've been doing a lot of YouTube videos and practicing my color grading, practicing my shooting skill, know the limit to my cameras, these two cameras, and that's where I'm at right now. There's a lot of cameras coming out, the a7r III, which I talked about in my previous video, that I am not going to upgrade, or maybe I will, but in the near future. I'm talking about a year or year and a half from now, when the price has dropped and a7S III comes out, and again I'll evaluate that as well, and you know, maybe a 4 or 5, whatever version is coming out. I'm always 1 year behind because I always want to know if that camera system have any issue, right? For example, in Sony cameras, you know, I know Sony has been trying their best to fix it, which is the overheating issue in certain cameras. I have 2 of them which had a problem with that, and I know that the a7r II did have it once, and then they fixed that, and then the a6500 has also has a warning, but it doesn't overheat in a sense that will turn itself off. It'll give you a warning. So they somehow fixed it, but I don't think it's a 100% fixed. So keep that in mind, right? Know your limit of your camera. Know all the buttons feature. know when to use it, and know how to access it quickly. And that's the key. You know, once you know your camera, just like your hand, like how to utilize your hand, if you know how to use your camera properly, really, it doesn't matter if you have an ABIS inside this camera or it's doing 4K. If you know how to color grade, and for example, there's certain camera, for example, it may have 1080p internally, record 1080p internally, but it can do 4K externally. Well, all you have to do is buy an external monitor like the Atomos Shogun, for example, that can do 4K, 422 10-bit, and just hook that up. If in the future you decide to, want to upgrade, instead of changing the camera, just buy the external monitor recorder that can do that. All right. So a lot of things that you may not be aware of, and don't let YouTubers who's into gears push you to buy better gears. That's not the point of the photography and videography. It's the creativity that's the most important. And I hope that everyone who's doing YouTube photography and videography show more of their work. In other words, don't show me the camera. Show me what you can do with the camera. How do you compose your shot? Like one person I really enjoy watching is Jason Lanier. He actually go out and use his model, and he would do all these type of setting, and then take a picture of the subjects, and did a good job on that as well. Okay, so be like that. Come up with a video that show people your work, and not necessarily the gear. All right, thanks for watching EducateTube.com. Oh, by the way, I'm going to show you what I did with my a7r II that I sold and end up purchasing. So I'm downgrading that to another hardware that is a dream video camera. Okay, I'll see you later.